Good morning. This is becoming a habit. This is probably the third day in a row that I'm reading into the camera for an eventual posting on Bluebird Semaphore, that being my channel on YouTube. So I was going to definitely do another old book. I was poking around, and a number of books came to my attention that I was trying to make a decision which I would do today. But instead I came across a lot of type-printed material, and crumbled up in there was some older type-written poems from a fairly long time ago. I mean, they would qualify in the old book category. I do believe that they're from the Eastern Long Island, East Hampton episode of my life, but I had two of those episodes, and this is the first one, the one that went from the 70s to the mid 80s or thereabouts, or perhaps just through the 70s and a little beyond, and the second one was in the 80s. But in this crumbled up pile of typewritten papers, I came across this poem I wrote, and I'm sure I wrote it in the 70s, and it was called When Workers Let Out. And I decided to read it into YouTube, Bluebird Semaphore. It's reasonable enough to do that, and at least I know that there will be a record of this. Not only will this, what I'm doing on the PC, be put in a file, a folder, and then I'll upload it, so it'll be in two places, and I can stop worrying about having these things scattered all over the place. So I probably have 100 of them like this, and over time they're going to just get tossed. Okay, so here we go. Title of the poem by Joe Wennberg is called When Workers Let Out. Some people, mute, still, never grow ill. Some rely on their own will. My hat I wear at the end of the day. My God, I bleed from the pulpit. At last it is seen in the memory machine that Joel here fought in the trenches, blew out his mind piece. My God, it's a right you stand up and fight and swear you never quite meant it. The tutor is gone, the song he sung, the song he sang lies festering dormant on my tongue. Don't say it's enough to live in the rough when men prick their fingers on poison. The you I knew once passed for a Jew, though his mother and father were Arab. They lived in the Bronx, not far from New York. The mayor there flatly denied it. That a man could live on a cup of sweet wine was myth, and no one would buy it. Yet drunks could be seen in the crumbling machine, lying on a street curb dying. It was their way, no man would deny. They got what they went finding. My daughter wrote a poem for a man who died when no one would meet him. 12 lines in a couplet was all she composed, a sonnet soaring to greet him. The mayor blessed her and said he saw God ahead. The social welfare gave credence. No man could be saved from the dark side of dreams, and God is an invertebrate dying. At the end of the day, when workers let out, the grease off their eyelids falling, they've made it once more, 2 times through the door, and Saturday needs to be hurried. But the mayor said, please give them a bed, and social welfare applauded. The right of the might will do for tonight, and tomorrow who can afford it? All the bluffs in Nebraska are bluffs sure enough, but the ones in the city are human. We'll give them sweet grass, a penny to pass, through turnstiles, to jobs, henceforth we'll tax them. Tonight the moon hides in and out the trees. The soil of earth is hard crusted. The songs I've learned have inward turned to give me some sort of semblance. But I'm fooled by the sounds of the banging machine that bang on my head like a trumpet. Though God is ahead, the senses are dead. The wheels spin off their sprockets. The end. All right, the second poem is a tiny poem. Tiny, see, very tiny. Much in the format of a nature lore or something like that. So it's called Long Island Night. Long Island night, the dark bay, the wind that howls from the distant stars, the massive woods that surround Long Island night, the ocean, the storm that toils far out at sea, the sailor's nightmare. Long Island night, far from Getty Square or Harlem's circles, filled with the tranquility of peaceful slumber and dim lights reflecting Indians on the bay. The end. And then one other smallish, kind of nature-ish poem. Once again, these 3 definitely from the 1970s. When I was living out on the South Fork, but pretty much the East End, in the township of East Hampton, in a district called Springs. Springs, very lovely place, all woods and bay, quiet, lovely, very, very nice. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Eventually I wound up somewhere in the woods of Cape May County, and for my money I would certainly pick that spot of the South Fork out in East Hampton over anything in Cape May County. You can keep Cape May County for all I care. It's just over. It's overhyped. It really is. But listen, I came here to read a poem or two, not to speculate on the plunders that were made and continue to be made in developing Cape May County. If you wanted to and had a blanket the size of a postage stamp You couldn't find a beach anywhere along the ocean shore to lay that tidbit of a blanket. Is just totally a mess. Anyway, let's get to this thing that I call when sparrows are the only ones to visit. Incubating the idea of wanting you, dull yellow salt marsh, on November day, conspicuously coveting heron and osprey, to say nothing of Canadian geese on just harvested potato fields, forming for radar-guided flight across Long Island Skyway, walking through woods, the only ones to visit are sparrows, fed on garden residue, winter everywhere foreboding, incubating the idea of wanting you. The end. So that's my 3 poems that I rediscovered today, and will try to put down back in some order so that I can get them again if need be. Now, as I said, I'll be putting this up on Bluebird Semaphore, and that being said, I probably can draw this rather short video clip to an end and log on to YouTube, do an upload to Bluebird, and get on with my day. And so that's what I'm going to do, folks. I hope you enjoyed the little poetry reading. I have put other poems up on Bluebird if you can find them. Probably if you search on a title, like for example, Notes to Bury Your Dead, you'll probably find that one. That one's a fairly long one, and I particularly like that one. There's another one that might be up there called Old Cape May, at the water's edge, rock cuts crystal. That may be up there. If not, I'm going to look for it again and put it up there. Now, when I was berating Cape May, it doesn't mean that there's nothing in Cape May that's not naturally awe-inspiring. The cove down at the end of Cape May Beach, very much the end, making a semicircle that heads out to the lighthouse. And on one side, you have the Atlantic Ocean. On the other side of the cove, along the strand, the beach, there's the meadow. And out towards the west, you'll see the lighthouse, which is something that every New Year's Eve, now for probably the last 4 or 5 years, some friends of mine and myself gather at the end of Beach Avenue and walk along the cove on our way to the lighthouse. That's done on New Year's Eve, late in the afternoon, around about 4:30. My intention is to be there when it's dark. A lot of folks that do it, and there's not a lot anymore, but they complain that it's too cold, blah, blah, blah. I think eventually myself and 2 or 3 others will be the only ones doing it. But it's quite lovely if you get the right mix of sun setting and air quality, waves, so on. It's quite nice, very stimulating, you know. And I think that there may be some taping of that on Bluebird. I don't know. I think there may be. But, so, like I said, there are things that, from a point of view of the natural environment down here in Cape May, they're quite lovely. You know, we like to point out over there in North Cape May that they're the most beautiful sunsets in the world, and they are very nice. They are very nice, but obviously they probably haven't seen the sunsets in Fortescue, New Jersey. Those are spectacular, and this is a very undeveloped, not crowded spot on the Delaware shore. That would be the Delaware's eastern shore, Delaware Bay, eastern shore, and there is a lovely hotel there. I don't want to call it a motel because it's 2 stories. There's a restaurant there. An acquaintance of mine by the name of Sybil took the place over after Sandy. Sandy, the superstorm, took the back end of that Chatsworth or Charlesworth. That's it. Charlesworth is the name of the hotel restaurant. Superstorm Sandy took the back end of it off, threw it right in the water, as it did to most of the houses along the Delaware at that point, because they were, there was nothing impeding the Delaware. The storm came and put most structures in the water. The previous owners didn't want to spend another dime, as many people. They had it. But I don't know the whole story, but this friend of mine acquired it and is operating it as a hotel and a restaurant, and a very fine job he does too, by the way. Nice staff, beautiful views of the bay, just beautiful. And that's where the extraordinary sunsets are. So if you set it up, you'll have a room on the second floor, you'll have a balcony, and you'll see the sunset. Maybe you'll come down to eat, or you'll do it vice versa. You eat, and then you go up and see the sunset. Fortescue, New Jersey. Check it out. Listen, but don't bring too many people with you, all right? Because we don't want to do it. My cousin once warned me about advertising the better sides of things, because then you let the cat out of the bag and everybody's going in. We were at Acabonic, and some I want to say some amateur artist was sitting on the shore facing the Acabonic Harbor, sandy, reeds and all that kind of stuff, very natural, and painting it. And I was having, this brief, impromptu conversation with the guy, and I told him that he should do more of it. And when I was done, my cousin chided me. He says, that's all you want to do is have everybody coming out here to the Acabonic, because you may not know it or not, but my cousin and I, we're the original Acabonics. We really are. But haven't been out there for a while. Last time I was out there, I was with my cousin on an October day, real breezy, and his son, very good mariner, very good. I think he had like a 23, 24, maybe even bigger, 26, 27-foot boat called a Bar Harbor, I believe, and it was an inboard. And the weather, although it was bright, sunny, crisp October, cool day, the winds were kicking up. And we went out anyway, even though once we got out of the harbor out there in Montauk, and we turned east, I mean, that wind was ripping. But we didn't care, because we were going after striped bass with light tackle. Oh, boy. So we get near a rip. There's a rip out there when you get towards the end. In other words, underwater rocks. And then the tide, the water breaks over those rocks, but you don't see the rocks. And that's where we did. We put ourselves 40, 50, 100 feet away from the rocks and cast into that. And I hooked onto a very nice striped bass. Very lovely. This is probably 10 years ago. And then we turned around to go, after a while, more fishing. We turned to go back, and now we were facing into the wind. And what a rough ride that was. But my nephew, who was at the helm, it was his boat. He just did an excellent job of seamanship. He got us back safe. I was never really concerned. I was holding on to some of the superstructure. Had a little cabin, the superstructure. You could see it out and forward, back, or a very nice, whatever they call that thing in the stern. And recently my cousin ridiculed me and said I was scared out of my pants on that trip. And it's true, not true. The one who was scared out of his pants was my cousin. He's a few years older than me. And I distinctly remember him sitting in the back of the boat on kind of hanging on the stern for dear life. That's what I remember. But I didn't, I wasn't that, I was concerned because the weather was severe. But I felt in good hands with my nephew, who must have felt that I also was, fairly responsible and not too shabby in a marine environment, because he left the helm to go up and fix some lines in the bow. And he just turned to me and said, "Joe, take care of this for now. I got to go up there." So, I felt good about that trip. Really, it's just a great trip, one you'll remember forever. And then we pulled in, and all things were good. Everything was good. And then a very long, arduous trip back home. I was living in the Toms River area at the time. Okay, folks, that's it. A few poems, chit-chat. Hope you're okay with that. Okay, bye-bye.